In the year 2247, Earth was a shadow of what it once had been. The blue planet that once teemed with life and beauty now lay broken under layers of pollution and decay. Forests were gone, swallowed by sprawling cities built to house billions, who struggled daily for food, water, and clean air. The oceans, once vibrant and full of secrets, were now murky wastelands where only the hardiest creatures could survive. Humanity's mistakes had caught up with them, and there was no turning back. Amidst this chaos, a group of scientists, politicians, and engineers gathered in a dimly lit room beneath the ruins of what used to be New York City. They called themselves the United Earth Council, the last governing body trying to hold together the fragments of human civilization. For months, they debated over one question: what could be done to save humanity? Some argued for staying on Earth and attempting to fix the damage, but most knew it was too late for that. Others suggested building massive colony ships to send people to other planets, but resources were so scarce that even constructing a single ship seemed impossible. Finally, after weeks of arguments and sleepless nights, they reached a decision. There would be one ship, no more. It would carry a small crew, just enough to explore nearby star systems and find a new home for humanity. If they failed, then humanity would fade into history, remembered only as another species that couldn't adapt. But if they succeeded, their discovery might give Earth's remaining population a fighting chance. The ship was named Eos, after the Greek goddess of dawn. It wasn't large or grand like the spaceships imagined in old science fiction stories. Instead, it was compact, designed to maximize efficiency while minimizing resource use. Its engines hummed softly, powered by technology cobbled together from decades of research and scraps salvaged from abandoned projects. Inside, the walls were plain metal, the corridors narrow, and the living quarters cramped. Yet, despite its simplicity, Eos represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity in those dark times. Leading the mission was Captain Rachel Hayes, a woman whose calm demeanor masked a fierce determination. She had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this, commanding smaller vessels on dangerous rescue missions near Earth's toxic atmosphere. Her experience made her the obvious choice to lead such a critical endeavor, though she often doubted herself late at night when no one else was around. Joining her were 14 others, each selected not just for their skills but also for their ability to work together under extreme conditions. Among the crew was Ethan Cole, a young astrophysicist whose eyes sparkled whenever he talked about stars. He had grown up reading books about space exploration and dreaming of stepping foot on alien worlds. Now he stood on the brink of making those dreams real, though the weight of responsibility sometimes overwhelmed him. Then there was Samantha Brooks, or Sam as everyone called her, the ship's chief engineer. With grease-stained hands and a sharp mind, she kept Eos running smoothly, often working long hours to ensure every system functioned perfectly. Her practical nature clashed occasionally with Dr. Daniel Harper, the mission's lead biologist, whose idealistic views sometimes blinded him to reality. As Eos prepared for launch, millions of people across Earth tuned in to watch. Screens flickered to life in underground bunkers and makeshift shelters, showing live footage of the sleek silver ship perched atop its launch pad. Many wondered why humanity hadn't sent multiple ships or invested more effort into ensuring success. Some whispered that the Council didn't care whether the mission succeeded or failed, that sending one ship was merely a way to ease guilt. But deep down, most understood the truth. It wasn't lack of willpower or compassion that limited the mission. It was lack of options. Every ounce of material, every drop of fuel had been poured into Eos. This solitary vessel carried all of humanity's hopes and fears into the unknown. When the countdown reached 0, flames erupted beneath Eos, propelling it skyward with a deafening roar. On board, the crew felt the force pressing them into their seats as Earth grew smaller and smaller through the windows. For many of them, it was the first time they'd seen the planet from space. Its swirling clouds and vast oceans, breathtakingly beautiful despite the scars left by centuries of neglect. As they broke free of Earth's gravity and entered the cold silence of space, a profound sense of awe washed over them. They were truly alone now, floating in an endless void far from home. Life aboard Eos quickly settled into a routine. Days, blurred together as the crew worked tirelessly to maintain the ship and analyze data streaming in from nearby star systems. Meals were simple affairs, eaten quickly before returning to tasks. Conversations revolved around technical problems or memories of Earth, though these topics often led to uncomfortable silences. Each member of the crew coped with the isolation differently. Ethan spent hours staring out the observation window, mesmerized by the infinite expanse of stars. Sam focused on keeping busy, finding comfort in fixing things, and Rachel, ever the leader, tried to keep spirits high even when doubts gnawed at her own resolve. One evening, as the crew gathered in the common area for dinner, Ethan brought up something unusual he'd noticed during his scans. A faint signal, barely detectable, seemed to be coming from a distant star system. At first, no one paid much attention, assuming it was just interference or background noise. But Ethan insisted. It was worth investigating, pointing out patterns within the signal that hinted at intelligence. His enthusiasm sparked curiosity among the others, and soon the entire crew was discussing the possibility of alien life. Rachel listened quietly, weighing the risks and rewards of altering course to investigate. Changing trajectory would burn precious fuel, potentially jeopardizing their primary mission. Yet the thought of encountering intelligent beings filled her with both excitement and dread. What if they weren't friendly? What if they saw humanity as a threat? These questions swirled in her mind as she finally gave the order to adjust Eos's path toward the mysterious signal. Whatever awaited them, she knew one thing for certain. They were about to step into uncharted territory, carrying not just their own lives, but the fate of humanity itself. And so, Eos sailed onward, its destination uncertain, but its purpose clear. To fail meant extinction, to succeed meant salvation. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, answers or dangers lay waiting. The journey through the vast emptiness of space was both thrilling and lonely. Days turned into weeks, and the crew aboard Eos adapted to the rhythms of life in deep space. The hum of the ship's engines became a constant companion, a reminder that they were moving forward even when the stars outside seemed frozen in place. For Ethan Cole, the astrophysicist, every moment spent gazing out the observation window felt like a gift. He had spent his entire life studying the universe from afar, but now he was part of it, surrounded by the infinite beauty of the cosmos. The swirling colors of distant nebulae and the sharp glint of faraway stars filled him with wonder, though he couldn't shake the weight of their mission. Samantha Brooks, or Sam as everyone called her, spent most of her time in the engineering bay, tinkering with the ship's systems. She knew Eos inside and out, from the intricate wiring of its computers to the delicate balance of its life support systems. To her, the ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a living thing that needed care and attention. Every day brought new challenges, minor malfunctions, unexpected power fluctuations, and the occasional glitch in navigation. But Sam took pride in solving these problems, knowing that the crew's survival depended on her ability to keep everything running smoothly. Dr. Daniel Harper, the biologist, often found himself at odds with Sam. While she focused on practical matters, he dreamed of the possibilities waiting for them in the unknown. He spent hours poring over data collected by the ship's sensors, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. His enthusiasm sometimes rubbed Sam the wrong way, especially when he suggested diverting resources to experiments she considered unnecessary. Their arguments were frequent, but never heated, more like a clash of perspectives than genuine conflict. Despite their differences, they respected each other's dedication to the mission. Captain Rachel Hayes tried to maintain a sense of normalcy among the crew. She held regular meetings to discuss progress and address concerns, ensuring that everyone had a voice. Her calm demeanor and steady leadership helped ease tensions during difficult moments. Still, she couldn't ignore the growing unease that lingered beneath the surface. Supplies were finite, and every system failure reminded them of how fragile their situation truly was. The thought of failure weighed heavily on her, not just because of what it meant for humanity, but because of the lives entrusted to her care. One day, while analyzing data from a nearby star system, Ethan noticed something unusual. A faint signal, barely detectable, seemed to be emanating from a planet orbiting a red dwarf star. At first, he dismissed it as interference or cosmic noise, but further examination revealed patterns too complex to be random. The signal consisted of repeating sequences that hinted at intelligence, though its origin remained unclear. Excited by the discovery, Ethan rushed to share his findings with the rest of the crew. When Ethan presented the signal to the group, reactions varied. Some were skeptical, dismissing it as a natural phenomenon or a trick of the sensors. Others, like Dr. Harper, were eager to investigate, seeing it as a potential breakthrough. Rachel listened carefully, weighing the risks and rewards of altering course to explore the source of the signal. Changing trajectory would burn precious fuel, potentially jeopardizing their primary mission. Yet the possibility of encountering intelligent life was too significant to ignore. After much deliberation, she made the decision to adjust Eos's path toward the mysterious signal. As the ship approached the star system, anticipation grew among the crew. They scanned the planet, which they named Orion, using the ship's advanced instruments. Its surface appeared lush and vibrant, covered in dense forests and sprawling oceans. Signs of life were abundant, from towering trees to strange, bioluminescent creatures roaming the landscape. But what intrigued them most was the structure, a massive crystalline formation rising from the planet's surface, glowing faintly in the dim light of the red dwarf star. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a marvel of geometry and symmetry that defied explanation. The signal grew stronger as they drew closer, confirming its origin within the crystalline structure. Patterns emerged, mathematical sequences interspersed with images depicting geometric shapes. Dr. Harper theorized that these were attempts at communication, perhaps a test designed to gauge intelligence. Working alongside Mia Rodriguez, the ship's linguist, he began crafting a response using similar patterns. Hours passed as they fine-tuned their message, hoping to bridge the gap between two vastly different forms of life. To everyone's astonishment, the alien entity replied almost instantly. The response was clear and deliberate, indicating not only intelligence, but also a desire to communicate. Over the next several hours, a rudimentary dialogue developed. Through a combination of mathematics, symbols, and visual representations, the crew learned that the beings calling themselves the Kalith were aware of humanity's plight. They expressed curiosity about Earth and its inhabitants, asking questions that hinted at a deeper understanding of the universe. Encouraged by the progress, Rachel decided to take the next step. The Kalith transmitted coordinates to a location near the crystalline structure where the crew could meet them face to face. Preparing for the encounter required careful planning. The landing party would consist of Rachel, Ethan, Harper, and Mia, each chosen for their unique skills and expertise. As they suited up and prepared to board the lander, a mix of excitement and apprehension filled the air. They were about to make contact with an alien species, a moment that could change the course of human history. Back aboard Eos, Sam worked tirelessly to ensure the ship remained operational during their absence. She monitored systems closely, ready to respond to any issues that might arise. Though she trusted Rachel's judgment, she couldn't help but worry about the risks involved. What if something went wrong on the surface? What if the Kalith weren't as benevolent as they seemed? These thoughts gnawed at her, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on her duties. As the lander descended toward Orion, the crew marveled at the planet's beauty. Vast plains stretched out beneath them, dotted with strange flora that shimmered in the starlight. Rivers carved through the landscape, their waters reflecting the glow of the crystalline structure in the distance. When they landed, the air outside was breathable, though tinged with an unfamiliar scent. Stepping onto the surface, they felt a mix of awe and trepidation. This was uncharted territory, a world untouched by human hands. Approaching the crystalline structure, they were struck by its sheer size and complexity. It pulsed with light, casting colorful reflections across the surrounding area. Strange symbols adorned its surface, shifting and changing as if alive. Before they could examine it further, movement caught their attention. From behind the structure emerged the Kalith, their forms unlike anything the crew had imagined. Towering and translucent, they seemed to shimmer with an inner light, their bodies composed of shifting patterns that defied description. The Kalith greeted the humans with a series of gestures and sounds, accompanied by visual displays projected from their forms. Through Mia's translations, the crew learned that the Caliph had been observing humanity for centuries, fascinated by both its destructive tendencies and its capacity for creativity. They offered assistance, but made it clear that help would come with conditions. Humanity would need to prove itself worthy, demonstrating qualities like cooperation, ingenuity, and resilience. Standing before the Caliph, Rachel felt a surge of hope tempered by caution. This encounter could be the key to humanity's survival, but it also carried risks. Whatever trials lay ahead, she knew the crew would face them together, united by their shared purpose. As the Caliph led them inside the crystalline structure, the crew stepped into the unknown, carrying not just their own hopes, but the future of their species. Inside the crystalline structure, the air felt different, charged with an energy that hummed softly against the crew's skin. The walls shimmered with shifting patterns of light, creating an ever-changing mosaic that seemed alive. Rachel Hayes and her team followed the Caliph deeper into the heart of the structure, their footsteps echoing faintly on the smooth, translucent floor. Each step brought a mix of awe and unease, as if they were walking through a dream yet fully aware of its reality. The Caliph moved gracefully ahead, their forms glowing faintly, guiding the humans toward what awaited them. The Caliph explained their intentions through a combination of symbols projected onto the walls and sounds translated by Mia Rodriguez. They revealed that humanity had caught their attention long ago, not because of its achievements, but because of its contradictions. On one hand, humans had shown remarkable creativity and resilience, building civilizations and exploring the stars, despite countless challenges. On the other hand, they had also demonstrated reckless destruction, consuming resources and harming their own planet in ways that puzzled the Caliph. Now, faced with extinction, humanity had sent this one small ship into the void, carrying both its hopes and fears. The Caliph saw this act as a test of character, a chance to see whether humanity deserved a second chance. To determine their worthiness, the Caliph proposed a series of trials designed to assess the crew's abilities and values. These challenges would not be easy, they warned, requiring cooperation, intelligence, and courage. Failure meant the end of the mission, leaving humanity to face its fate alone. Success, however, would grant access to advanced technology capable of terraforming barren worlds into habitable sanctuaries. The offer was clear: prove yourselves or perish. Rachel listened carefully, weighing the stakes. She knew the risks, but also understood the potential rewards. Turning to her team, she saw determination in their eyes, though she could sense the tension simmering beneath the surface. Ethan Cole adjusted his glasses nervously, his mind already racing with possibilities. Dr. Harper clenched his fists, his competitive nature pushing him to rise to the challenge. Mia stood quietly, her sharp mind processing every detail of the Caliph's words. Together they nodded, signaling their readiness to proceed. The first trial began almost immediately. The crew found themselves in a vast chamber filled with intricate puzzles etched into the walls. Symbols glowed faintly, shifting positions as if alive. The task was simple yet daunting: solve the puzzles to unlock the next phase of the trial. Ethan took the lead, his analytical mind quickly identifying patterns within the chaos. He worked closely with Mia, who deciphered the linguistic elements of the puzzles, translating alien concepts into human terms. Their collaboration was seamless, each member contributing their unique strengths to the effort. Hours passed as they pieced together solutions, frustration giving way to triumph as sections of the wall lit up in response to their answers. As the first trial concluded, the Caliph observed silently, their glowing forms flickering slightly as if in approval. But the next challenge proved more difficult, testing not just intellect but also teamwork and trust. The crew entered a labyrinthine corridor where gravity shifted unpredictably, forcing them to navigate narrow paths suspended above seemingly endless voids. Dr. Harper, eager to prove himself, rushed ahead without waiting for the others, nearly causing an accident when a section of the path collapsed beneath him. Rachel intervened, pulling him back just in time and reminding him that haste could endanger them all. The incident sparked a heated argument, with Harper accusing her of holding them back while Rachel insisted on caution. It wasn't until Sam radioed from EOS, urging them to stay focused, that tempers cooled and they resumed working together. The final trial pushed them to their limits, both physically and emotionally. They were placed in a simulated environment resembling Earth at its most desolate, a barren wasteland scorched by fire and choked by ash. The goal was to construct a shelter using limited materials scattered throughout the area. Resources were scarce, and decisions had to be made quickly. Ethan suggested prioritizing structural integrity, while Harper argued for maximizing space to accommodate everyone comfortably. Rachel mediated, balancing their differing viewpoints and ensuring no one was left behind. Through sheer determination and ingenuity, they completed the shelter just as the simulation ended, leaving them exhausted but victorious. Throughout the trials, tensions flared and bonds deepened. Rachel's leadership was tested repeatedly, but her calm resolve earned the respect of her crew. Ethan discovered a newfound confidence in his abilities, no longer doubting his role in the mission. Harper learned the value of patience and teamwork, realizing that individual brilliance meant little without collaboration. And Mia, often quiet and reserved, emerged as a vital link between the humans and the Caliph, her translations bridging the gap between two vastly different species. Back aboard Eos, Sam kept a close eye on the ship's systems, ensuring everything remained operational during the crew's absence. She monitored fuel levels, life support, and communication channels, staying in constant contact with Rachel to provide updates. Though she worried about the risks involved in the trials, she trusted her teammates to succeed. Still, the strain of waiting weighed heavily on her, and she threw herself into maintenance tasks to keep her mind occupied. When the crew finally returned, weary but triumphant, she greeted them with relief and pride, knowing they had accomplished something extraordinary. The Caliph acknowledged the crew's success, their glowing forms pulsing brighter as they conveyed approval. They provided blueprints for advanced terraforming technology, explaining how it could transform barren planets into lush, habitable worlds. However, they emphasized that activating the device required immense energy, far beyond what Eos could generate. To power it, the ship itself would need to be dismantled piece by piece, sacrificing their only means of travel in exchange for a new beginning. The revelation hit the crew like a blow, forcing them to confront yet another difficult decision. Rachel called a meeting to discuss the implications. Some argued that preserving Eos was essential, believing they could find another way to activate the device. Others, including Ethan, believed the sacrifice was necessary, pointing out that their mission had always been about ensuring humanity's survival. Sam voiced her concerns about the technical challenges of dismantling the ship, but ultimately agreed that it might be their only option. After hours of debate, Rachel made the painful decision to move forward with the plan. Eos had carried them this far, but now it would serve one final purpose: to give humanity a future. As the crew prepared to dismantle their home, emotions ran high. Memories flooded back of laughter shared in cramped quarters, arguments resolved, and dreams whispered under the glow of distant stars. They worked together, methodically taking apart the systems that had kept them alive for so long. Each bolt removed, each panel detached, felt like losing a piece of themselves. Yet there was also a sense of pride in knowing that their efforts would ensure humanity's survival. Sam stayed by the engines until the very end, refusing to leave until the last component was salvaged. Her hands trembled as she disconnected, the final wire, tears streaming down her face. When the terraforming process began, the results were immediate and breathtaking. Barren landscapes transformed into verdant plains, rivers carved through newly formed valleys, and breathable air filled the atmosphere. The Caliph kept their word, transporting the crew to the revitalized planet via their own technology. As the humans stepped onto the fertile soil of their new home, they looked up at the sky and saw Earth's sun twinkling faintly in the distance. Though they had lost much, they had gained something greater: a second chance. The Caliph's promise of a new beginning came with a heavy price, one that weighed heavily on every member of the crew. As they stood before the blueprints for the terraforming device, Rachel Hayes felt the full gravity of their situation. The machine was breathtaking in its complexity, a marvel of alien engineering designed to reshape entire planets, but powering it required more energy than Eos could generate. To activate the device, the ship itself would need to be dismantled. Piece by piece, its components repurposed to fuel the process. It was a sacrifice that left no room for retreat. Without hesitation, Rachel made the decision to proceed, knowing it was the only way to ensure humanity's survival. Back aboard Eos, the crew gathered in the common area to discuss the plan. Emotions ran high as they realized what dismantling the ship truly meant. For months, Eos had been their home, their shelter, and their lifeline. Its narrow corridors and cramped quarters held countless memories, moments of laughter, tension, and quiet reflection. Now they were being asked to tear it apart, piece by piece, until nothing remained. Sam Brooks, the ship's engineer, struggled to keep her composure as she outlined the technical steps required to dismantle the vessel. Her voice wavered slightly as she explained how each system would be stripped down, from the life support units to the engines that had carried them so far. Ethan Cole listened quietly, his mind racing with calculations and possibilities. He understood the logic behind the decision, but couldn't ignore the emotional toll it took. Every bolt he removed, every panel he detached, felt like losing a part of himself. Yet he pushed forward, focusing on the bigger picture. Mia Rodriguez worked alongside him, translating the Calith's instructions into actionable steps. Her calm demeanor helped steady the others, even as her own heart ached at the thought of losing the ship that had brought them this far. Dr. Harper, usually quick to argue or challenge decisions, found himself unusually subdued. He moved through the ship silently, documenting its systems for future reference, knowing their knowledge might someday save lives. Rachel oversaw the operation, ensuring everyone stayed focused and safe. She divided the crew into teams, assigning tasks based on their skills and strengths. Sam led the effort to dismantle the engines, her hands moving deftly as she disconnected wires and removed components. Ethan worked on the navigation systems, carefully preserving delicate instruments that might still prove useful. Mia and Harper collaborated on the life support units, salvaging parts while ensuring the crew remained comfortable during the process. Despite the somber mood, there was an unspoken determination among them. They knew this was their purpose, their reason for being here. As the dismantling progressed, tensions flared occasionally. Long hours of grueling work took their toll, leaving everyone physically and emotionally drained. One day, Sam snapped at Harper after he suggested bypassing a safety protocol to speed things up. Her sharp words echoed through the empty corridors, breaking the silence that had settled over the ship. Harper retaliated, accusing her of being overly cautious at a time when speed mattered most. Rachel intervened quickly, reminding them of the stakes and urging them to focus on the task at hand. After a few deep breaths, they apologized and returned to work, their shared goal outweighing personal grievances. Despite the challenges, moments of camaraderie emerged. Late at night, when the work slowed and exhaustion set in, the crew gathered in the dimly lit common area to share stories. They talked about Earth, the places they missed, the people they loved, the dreams they hoped to fulfill someday. Ethan spoke fondly of stargazing as a child, lying on his back in a field and imagining distant worlds. Sam shared tales of fixing old cars with her father, a memory that brought both smiles and tears. Mia recounted her fascination with languages, describing how decoding alien symbols felt like solving a lifelong puzzle. Even Harper opened up, admitting that his relentless drive stemmed from a fear of failure, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. These conversations strengthened their bond, reminding them why they had embarked on this mission. They weren't just individuals working toward a common goal. They were a team, united by hope and resilience. Each story reinforced their commitment to see the mission through no matter the cost. As the days passed, Eos began to change. Corridors grew quieter as panels were removed and systems shut down. The hum of the engines faded, replaced by the soft clinking of tools and the occasional murmur of voices. By the end, the once vibrant ship was reduced to a skeleton of its former self, its soul stripped away, but its purpose fulfilled. When the final component was salvaged, the crew stood together in the now empty hull, staring at the bare walls that had once been their home. Silence filled the space, broken only by the sound of their breathing. No one spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Rachel broke the stillness, thanking everyone for their hard work and sacrifice. Her words were simple but heartfelt, acknowledging the pain they had endured and the courage they had shown. She reminded them that Eos wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's perseverance, a testament to what could be achieved when people worked together for a greater cause. With the dismantling complete, the Caliph guided the crew to the site where the terraforming device would be activated. The location was awe-inspiring, a vast plain surrounded by towering mountains, their peaks dusted with snow. Crystalline structures similar to the one they had first encountered dotted the landscape, glowing faintly in the twilight. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the faint scent of something unfamiliar yet invigorating. As the crew assembled the device using parts salvaged from Eos, they marveled at the beauty of their new surroundings. This was it, their chance. To give humanity a second home, the activation process was intricate and nerve-wracking. Ethan double-checked every connection, his brow furrowed in concentration. Sam monitored the energy flow, ensuring the device received enough power to function properly. Harper and Mia worked together to align the components, their movements, precise and deliberate. Rachel supervised the operation, offering guidance and encouragement whenever needed. Hours passed as they fine-tuned the machine, each step bringing them closer to success. Finally, with everything in place, Rachel gave the order to initiate the sequence. At first, nothing happened. The crew exchanged worried glances, wondering if they had made a mistake. Then, slowly, the device began to hum, its surface lighting up with a soft glow. Energy surged through its core, spreading outward in waves that rippled across the plain. The ground trembled slightly as the transformation began. Barren soil turned rich and fertile, sprouting grass and wildflowers almost instantly. Rivers formed, carving paths through the land as water flowed freely from newly created springs. Trees grew rapidly, their branches reaching skyward as if stretching toward the sun. Within hours, the desolate landscape had become a thriving ecosystem teeming with life. The Caliph watched silently, their forms shimmering with approval. When the process concluded, they approached the crew, conveying gratitude and admiration for their efforts. Through Mia's translations, they explained that the planet was now ready to support human life indefinitely. Food sources, water, and breathable air were abundant, providing everything necessary for survival. The Caliph also offered to transport the crew to the planet's surface, ensuring their safe arrival and helping them establish a settlement. Rachel accepted their assistance, knowing the crew couldn't have accomplished this without them. As the Caliph prepared to leave, the crew expressed their thanks in words and gestures. Though communication between the two species remained limited, the bond they had formed was undeniable. The Caliph's actions had proven that compassion and cooperation transcended language and culture. Before departing, they gifted the humans a small crystalline object, explaining that it contained knowledge about maintaining the planet's balance. It was a reminder of their partnership and a symbol of trust. Standing on the fertile soil of their new home, the crew looked around in wonder. The planet was breathtakingly beautiful, a stark contrast to the desolation they had left behind on Earth. Rolling hills stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with vibrant vegetation and sparkling streams. Above them, the sky was clear and bright, filled with stars that seemed closer than ever before. For the first time in months, maybe even years, they felt a sense of peace. Rachel gathered the crew for a final meeting. She thanked them once again for their dedication and sacrifice, emphasizing that their journey was far from over. Building a new life here would require hard work, patience, and unity, but they had already proven capable of overcoming incredible challenges, and she had no doubt they would succeed. Together, they began planning the next steps, exploring the planet, setting up shelters, and preparing for the arrival of other humans who might follow. Though they had lost Eos, they had gained something far greater, a fresh start. Somewhere out there, Earth's sun still shone faintly, a reminder of where they had come from. But here, beneath a new sky, they had found hope. Their mission had been risky, painful, and uncertain, but it had also been worth it. Humanity's future lay before them, waiting to be shaped by their hands. And as they stood together on this, the new planet, which the crew named Haven, was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its beauty was overwhelming, a vivid reminder of what Earth must have been like before humanity's mistakes turned it into a wasteland. Rolling hills stretched endlessly, dotted with trees whose leaves shimmered in hues of gold and green. Streams carved gentle paths through the landscape, their waters crystal clear and teeming with life. The air smelled fresh, carrying the faint scent of flowers that bloomed in vibrant clusters across the plains. As the crew stood on the fertile soil, they felt a mix of awe and responsibility. This world was their second chance, but it came with the weight of ensuring they didn't repeat the same errors that had doomed Earth. Rachel Hayes took charge immediately, knowing the first steps were crucial. She divided the crew into teams, each tasked with exploring different areas of the planet to assess its resources and potential dangers. Ethan Cole and Mia Rodriguez set out together, mapping the terrain and cataloging plant and animal species. Their goal was to identify edible plants and safe sources of water while avoiding anything that might pose a threat. Dr. Harper focused on studying the planet's ecosystems, carefully observing how the native flora and fauna interacted. His findings would help them understand the delicate balance of this new world and ensure they didn't disrupt it unintentionally. Meanwhile, Sam Brooks worked tirelessly to construct temporary shelters using materials salvaged from EOS and local resources. Her hands moved quickly as she built sturdy structures that would protect the crew from the elements until more permanent solutions could be devised. Life on Haven was not without challenges. The days were long, filled with hard work under an unfamiliar sun. The nights brought cold winds that swept across the plains, forcing the crew to huddle close around small fires for warmth. Supplies were still limited, and rationing became a necessity as they waited for crops they had planted to grow. Tensions occasionally flared, especially when disagreements arose over priorities. Harper argued that studying the planet's biology should take precedence, believing it held answers to sustaining human life indefinitely. Sam countered that building infrastructure was more urgent, pointing out that survival depended on having shelter and tools. Rachel mediated these disputes patiently, reminding everyone that cooperation was key to their success. Despite the difficulties, there were moments of joy and wonder. One morning, Ethan woke early to find a herd of strange creatures grazing near the camp. They resembled deer but had elongated necks and iridescent fur that shimmered in the sunlight. He watched them quietly, marveling at their grace and beauty. Later, he shared his discovery with the others, who gathered to observe the animals from a distance. These encounters with Haven's wildlife reminded them why they had sacrificed so much, to preserve not just humanity, but the intricate web of life itself. As weeks turned into months, the crew began to settle into a routine. Crops started to sprout in the fields they had cleared, providing a steady supply of food. The shelters Sam had built became more comfortable, offering protection from the weather and serving as a base for further exploration. Ethan and Mia continued their surveys, venturing farther into uncharted territory. They discovered caves filled with glowing crystals, their light pulsing softly in rhythm with some unseen force. These formations seemed similar to those created by the Caliph, sparking theories about whether the alien beings had visited Haven before. Though they found no definitive proof, the idea filled them with a sense of connection to the mysterious race that had helped them. Dr. Harper made significant progress in understanding Haven's ecosystems. He identified several plants with medicinal properties, which could prove invaluable in treating injuries or illnesses. He also documented patterns in the behavior of native animals, noting how they migrated seasonally in search of food and water. His research provided insights that guided the crew's interactions with their surroundings, helping them live harmoniously with the planet rather than exploiting it recklessly. Back at the camp, Rachel often spent quiet moments reflecting on their journey. She thought about Earth, now a distant memory, and wondered if anyone there still believed in their mission. Had the signal from Haven reached home? Would others follow in their footsteps, bringing more people to this new world? These questions lingered in her mind, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on the present. Their survival depended on staying united and committed to building a future here. One evening, as the crew gathered around a fire, they shared stories of Earth. Sam spoke fondly of her childhood, describing summers spent fishing with her brothers in a lake that no longer existed. Ethan recalled late nights spent staring at the stars, dreaming of worlds beyond his own. Harper admitted he had always been driven by a desire to leave a legacy, something meaningful that would outlast him. Even Rachel opened up, sharing memories of her family and the sacrifices she had made to lead this mission. These conversations strengthened their bond, reminding them of the lives they hoped to save by succeeding here. As time passed, signs of progress became evident. The settlement grew larger, with sturdy buildings replacing the makeshift shelters. Fields of crops stretched across the plains, their green stalks swaying gently in the breeze. Tools crafted from local materials improved efficiency, allowing the crew to focus on expanding their reach. They even began experimenting with domesticating some of Haven's smaller animals, hoping to establish a sustainable source of food and labor. Each achievement brought a sense of pride and hope, reinforcing their belief that they could build a thriving community. But the crew never forgot the cost of their success. Late at night, when the fire burned low and the others slept, Sam sometimes wandered to the edge of the settlement. There, she stared at the stars, remembering Eos and all it had meant to them. It wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of everything they had left behind: their struggles, their dreams, their humanity. Losing it had been painful, but it had also taught them the value of sacrifice and resilience. In its absence, they had learned to rely on each other, forging a bond stronger than any metal or machine. One day, while exploring a distant valley, Ethan and Mia stumbled upon something extraordinary, a massive structure half buried in the earth. Its design bore striking similarities to the crystalline formations created by the Calith, suggesting it might have been built by the same beings. Inside, they found walls covered in glowing symbols, shifting and changing as if alive. Though they couldn't decipher the messages fully, they recognized patterns resembling those used during their trials. It was as if the Calith had left behind a message, a guide for those who followed in their footsteps. When they returned to the settlement, excitement rippled through the crew. Could this discovery hold answers about the Calith, or perhaps even a way to communicate with them again? Rachel decided to organize an expedition to study the structure further, assigning Ethan and Mia to lead the effort. Over the following weeks, they painstakingly documented every detail, piecing together fragments of knowledge that hinted at a deeper connection between Haven and the Calith. The experience reignited their sense of purpose, reminding them that their journey was far from over. Months turned into years, and the settlement flourished. What had once been a small camp became a thriving village, home to the original crew and newcomers who arrived after receiving transmissions from Haven. Word of their success had reached Earth, inspiring others to make the perilous journey across the stars. Ships began arriving sporadically, carrying supplies, technology, and settlers eager to start anew. With each arrival, the population grew, bringing fresh ideas and energy to the fledgling colony. Through it all, Rachel remained a steadfast leader, guiding the expansion of Haven with wisdom and compassion. She ensured that lessons learned from Earth's mistakes were never forgotten, advocating for sustainable practices and respect for the planet's natural balance. Under her leadership, Haven became a beacon of hope, a testament to what humanity could achieve when united by a common goal. Looking up at the night sky, Rachel often thought about the question that had haunted her since the beginning. Why did humanity send just one ship? The answer, she realized, lay not in numbers, but in courage. One ship, one crew, one mission. Each carried the hopes and dreams of billions, and though the odds had been against them, they had succeeded where many believed it impossible. Haven stood as proof that even in the darkest times, humanity's spirit could shine brightly enough to light the way forward.